why you skipped a step. That's genius. Of course it is genius. I am linked. Torn Curtain was a classic American spy thriller directed by Alfred Hitchcock, hitting the theaters in July 1966, premiering in Boston, Beantown, a $2 subway fare ride from Harvard Yard in Cambridge, a community where in 1905 Pastor Hemming Jacobson, a Swedish immigrant, had become famous for his refusal to submit to a vaccine mandate. And the film may have been very popular contemporaneously for that metropolis of scientists with neighboring MIT. But at least one of the most memorable scenes in the film, at least for me, would have to be the escape from the laboratory. Everybody liked the chase scene. Suspense, thrills, a topic that had coincidentally been a primary focus for the American intelligence community last year, when some say that a novel coronavirus may have, escaped. Let me up! Let me up! Let me up the bus! Wink, wink. Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, and as you may infer from the observation, I am a bit of a spy thriller fan, for whatever reason. But the film Torn Curtain presents a series of intriguing themes as it develops through various plot twists, stirring alarm and confusion, thwarting the security of the antagonist and permitting the protagonist, Michael Armstrong, portrayed by the American actor Paul Newman, and his girl, who had followed him, Sarah Newman, his laboratory assistant and fiancée, Sarah Sherman, portrayed by British actress Julie Andrews, the girl who had followed her lover behind the Iron Curtain to East Germany, because love will do anything. For an unexpected adventure they might be able to tell their kids and grandkids in the years to come, as they live happily ever after. And current events and litigation revolving around the current public health crisis parallel some of these themes developed in this riveting spy thriller about an American-type James Bond, and probably far more closer to the realities of spycraft than the antics of Agent 007. But it never got the syndication buzz to go quite beyond a one summer thriller. But still, it's enjoyable to watch on Netflix or TCM or wherever it comes on. Or maybe on video. Like Michael Armstrong, I am not a scientist, but may also know just enough about science to be dangerous. And in the last film, we had developed a theme regarding the security connected with a government research project and some of the, shall we say, spycraft. Let me up! Let me up! Let me up the bus! Involved with that connection, and there is one scene involving a reproduction of a public bus. A reproduction of a public bus, identical to the regular bus between Leipzig and Berlin, that the underground network had somehow acquired and had apparently used successfully in the past, that would be used to facilitate the escape of Dr. Armstrong and his assistant, Miss Sherman, after they had been discovered. All agents and security people were looking for them by running 10 minutes ahead of the regularly scheduled bus line. And apparently this scheme or artifice, at least in the movie, even forced to make stops along the route if passengers appeared along the route, had been successful in the past. And this idea is probably plausible to the audience, caught in the emotion of the thriller. But for a moment, put on your James Bond tuxedo, pretend that you are director of a secret undercover spy organization operating in a hostile environment with dromics running around the place. Would you devote limited resources to acquire a replica of a public bus and expose a large number of your people to the risk of detection and capture on a regular basis, as well as bus assets, or even on this unique mission where everyone is in a rush and a panic and emotions tend to dominate in those situations? If your answer is yes, then maybe that is why you never quite got that job as the director of an underground spy organization. Dr. Armstrong, I forbid you to leave. Bro,
Professor Armstrong and Miss Sherman, you're wanted at once in the Vice Rector's office. Professor Armstrong and Miss Sherman, you're wanted at once in the Vice Rector's office.
Police now. We've never had the police. 20 times we have made this journey. We have never had the police. They are endangering our whole enterprise because they are not only partners, but partners wanted by the police.
At least in the movie, this was a standard operation, which this collection of collaborators had performed to perfection at least 20 times before, with no risk. And after escaping from the laboratory, with the assistance of their first source, a double agent, Dr. Koska, traveling by bicycle through the streets of Leipzig, neurology, the film imposes on reality a new reality of a bus to facilitate the escape of Dr. Armstrong and Miss Sherman. And their ultimate destination was the Friedrich Strauss post office. No matter what occurred, this was where they had to go to have a liaison, a handoff with their next source or contact in country, in what provides a graphically captivating illustration for audiences, at least, so inclined to see firsthand exactly how a covert operation and cover story might work.
What's so funny? Well, it's funny in one way, but perhaps it's in another way not funny. You see, the military have decided to give us an escort. As you see, we pick up no passengers. Now we will have to stop. Even if we don't, the police up front will.
With plausible deniability, ordinary bus, good enough to fool anyone on a first casual look, and trying each and every second to escape detection and discovery of truth, which is illustrated by the regular bus following behind them. And as long as nothing went wrong, this second bus could pass without notice, blending into what would appear to the casual observer, not the professional of course, to be something perfectly normal.
Well, if you wish, I will let you off the bus, but you will not say anything to the police. Henrik, stop. And you, I hope you get caught for giving everybody so much trouble.
People that are more than casual observers tend to be curious and ask questions. But at least according to Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong will. It's like a science. And never having had a problem before, this spy organization never thought something might go wrong.
You are a very educated man, Mr. Gromick. I went to night school, Professor. A very special night school. And they taught us all about coronaviruses.
The, shall we say, passengers on the bus in Dunkirk may have been a part of what, as at least in the film Enemy of the State, starring actors Will Smith and Gene Hackman, been described as a standard training op, STO, or even mission. More properly situated operationally for activities like probing or casing the joint, with no great risk of discovery or capture. Certainly for those less inclined towards daring and other types of activities, and where a simple cover story, like any tourist might obtain when visiting the Spy Museum, might use to quickly resolve any low-level interrogation after encountering security. And in a pandemic, after at least 23% of Americans became early suspicious by February 2020. The cover story presented was the cover story of what has often been referred to as evolving science.
a dirty two-bit organization for spying and escaping. Can't you do better than them, Mr. American Agent? It's the big house for you, Professor. You'll get life.
Which, according to the Pew Research Center, by July 2020, most Americans, more Democrats than Republicans, were believing, not being exactly very familiar with science of infectious disease, and definitely not to the level of a certain former, shall we say, biological warfare planner and Army top spy might be, and who began to start asking some probing questions, and all places presented in a court of law, not just on Facebook or YouTube.
You're not going to work with me, Professor, if that is the extent of your knowledge. I'm afraid, Professor, you have very little though from social media.
And what happens when your standard training op or mission encounters some, shall we say, evolutionary pressure and needs to develop a descendant mutant variation to survive in a non-standard training operation? Well, in one case, you might find a sheriff, a prosecutor, the White House, and even the illustrious Dr. Tony Fauci having to provide an explanation to the Supreme Court regarding executive privilege. And while most attention in America was directed towards the celebration of a new holiday to observe the day when a report the slaves in Galveston had finally received the news of their emancipation, one former Army top spy was filing that very case at the court.
I went to night school, Professor. A very special night school. And they taught us all about coronaviruses.
So perhaps after the pandemic, when you return to your adventurous and exciting life, you may one day wish to follow in the steps of Michael Armstrong. And so before closing this out, let's just provide some of the key signatures that you need to watch out for to let you know that something is definitely not normal. Lest you become like the slaves in Galveston, waiting for news to arrive. Mishaps happen, and that's part of life. There's a bureaucratic red tape that causes delay all the time. But even in pandemic, when a court fails to issue a summons for a sheriff to serve a complaint, there is something very not normal, and you have a choice to keep up the pursuit or just walk away. When the red tape goes on for over a year and the state attorney general is in court trying to dismiss the case he claims he never knew about because the sheriff never gave him the complaint, again, you have a choice to keep up the pursuit or simply walk away. When you have to go to the extent of filing an affidavit with the prosecutor to get him to bring charges against the sheriff to a mathematical certainty, you had better expect that this matter is going to court. But when a case makes its way all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, this is not a success story, and may have something to do with the last case we brought to the United States Supreme Court, where the official position of the government was announced that it can neither confirm nor deny that it owns the biological causative agent for COVID-19. A case now back at the Supreme Court again, which sounds a lot like the government owns it. But again, we can't say. But if science is all about replication of results, how in the world might you have evolving science with a simple single strand of RNA that, at least in this instance, isn't stupid? Now be the shame. This briefing is unclassified. Honest, carry on. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
Professor Armstrong and Miss Sherman, you're wanted at once in the Vice Rector's office. Professor Armstrong and Miss Sherman, you're wanted at once in the Vice Rector's office.